every time when I had these problems about, people overstep the boundaries of a company in terms of the rules and so on, they're usually the highest performers. I learned I can be clever and moral. There are certain things that, in Chinese is called 占小便宜. You win a little bit, and those are the things that are sometimes not worth it. There are fundamental things that one should not cross. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about cleverness and morality. What an interesting topic, right? So I was recently thinking about this because I have 3 airline vouchers that I booked the airlines last year. I didn't end up using them. And there were 3 vouchers about $350, $450, and $550 each. And so 3 vouchers, couldn't use them. And I need to use them by, say, end of May, which is end of this month. And I was wondering, what do I do with them? So initially, I thought I can use the voucher and fly later after May. So I can book the ticket before end of May and then fly at end of the year. So going on a vacation to Hawaii or whatnot. And then the airline says no. So my executive assistant was making these bookings and they're like, you have to fly before end of May, which I couldn't do. So, there's about, give or take, a little bit more than $1,000 of credits that I could use, but I couldn't use. So one day I was just walking around on my walk. I'm like, hey, wait on a second. I booked with American Express. I cancel with American Express. And American Express has these vouchers. Why don't we book them, okay? And then turn around and cancel it on Alaska side and cancel it on American Airlines and also another airline company. When you cancel it on the airline side, instead of the money going back to American Express, it stays as a wallet in the virtual wallet of that airline. Then you can do whatever you want with it. And that gives you another year. So basically that cleverness allowed me to have one more year of flight voucher, the same flight vouchers. Some of them require a $200 change fee. So that's that. So that's an example of being clever. And the thing is, I think these kinds of examples just appear all the time in my life where I find a crack in the system and kind of explore it. That made me think, what is about me that I don't feel bad about it? So I think that being clever, you have to be disagreeable and you have to be kind of smart. And there's usually, quote unquote, a semi-negative correlation between that and morality. Will you use your cleverness to do bad things, right? To give another example, back in the day, I was doing a lot of single families. So I ended up buying 7 single families, house hacking. And the precise definition is you have to intend to buy a house for your primary residence use. So you have to live there. But the keyword is intent. Then you have to show enough evidence that when you're buying your second and third one, that the story makes sense that you're going to live in the second and third one. The rule of thumb is 1 year. And so, but I studied the thing, that's back in the day and find out that the equilibrium is actually 9 months. So I saved 3 months, so 1/4 of the time for every 1 year of time passing by. And so that means I can do 5 deals in 4 years as opposed to, or whatever the number is. So what that means is I can do 4 deals in 3 years as opposed to only 3 deals every 3 years. That's another example of being clever. And the last example, I guess, also recently was, so my mom had this pen that she bought a long time ago that still has the kind of the store clipper on that you couldn't take off. And when you take out, there's fluid and so it will spread across. So you couldn't just take out on your own. You need some kind of magnet to take it off. So she kept telling me that, hey, you should go to Macy's and take this thing off. I'm like, okay, cool. Sure. But instead of walking into Macy's, I walk into Nordstrom. So I recently bought something from Nordstrom, going for a wedding. The same thing that you're seeing right now. I'm going to get this tailor. That's why I'm wearing a suit for today's call. So instead of going to Macy's, I go to Nordstrom and I was picking up my stuff. And so I just casually asked, hey, can you just take this thing off for me? And they just stare like, this is not Nordstrom. I'm like, okay, I guess we bought it a long time ago. I don't know what that is. And then they, without asking, they took it off. And the cleverness being used there is that I'm a customer of Nordstrom, so they're gonna pay more attention to me. Whereas if I just randomly walk into a Macy's, they're just like, oh, I don't owe you anything, and you're just asking me for a favor, or are you gonna buy anything? Whereas with Nordstrom, I'm a customer. And then the last example I'll give is when I was a kid. I was in China, and there are these like street vendors that give you these games. And the game is like, if you get like, I don't remember the semantics, but basically you draw 6 marble balls. And if they are like 5 of the same color plus 1, that you get like a lot of points. If it's like 3 plus and 3 of the same color, then you get a lot of the ones, and then so on and so forth. So I was drawing one by one. I was like 3 marbles in, and there were already 3 colors. So one of my, I guess, aunts, or the people who work in the store, because my mom worked at a department store. And so one of my mom's coworkers kind of like went into the store and said, okay, Perry is done. He drew 3 of the same kind, and like he's not going to win. And then like few minutes later, I came in with a price. And my mom was like, what the hell? How did you do that? I'm like, well, they never told me the rule, which they never said what will happen if I overdraw. Okay, so 6 balls, if it's 3 and 3, or like 4 and 2 or whatever of 2 of the most 2 colors, then you win some price. Or if it's 1 color, you win even bigger price. But if you draw more than 6, technically you start over again. Okay, they haven't implemented that rule by the time. So if I see 3 colors and they don't say you cannot draw 1 at a time or 6 at a time, So I was drawing 1 at a time. If I see more than 3, I draw more. And so after that, they changed the rules. That's the extent of my memory. But it just almost a lot of times in my life, I apply cleverness to a situation. And sometimes I feel like, am I an immoral person by doing so? That is up to debate. And so I think in order to be clever, you have to be disagreeable and smart. Disagreeable part is the harder part. I obey the rules, I obey the laws, but I also know, like, if the laws and rules are made by the banks, there's a spirit behind it, right? Which is the banks could only care if you pay the mortgages, and I pay all my mortgages on time every month. So like, what is there for them to lose? So what's the difference between 12 months and 9 months, as long as I pay all my mortgages? So that's why I'm like disagreeable. In fact, I also think that the entire tax system that benefits landlords and real estate is almost like they want you to cheat. They want you to be clever. That's how I feel about it. And in fact, when I'm building my company, I want our employees to be creative. Talking of companies, so this is the part that's kind of vulnerable. When I was Lyft, I actually had 2 incidents in which I kind of ran into the HR. One was they accidentally add me to a list where it contains everyone's offer letters. So I was able to like open the email, look at the offer letter, and this guy got paid this much, And I did not report that, hey, I'm seeing this. I just save it into a different list, and I didn't report it. And so I was called upon into the HR office, and the HR lady, who was super nice, was like, I'm so disappointed in you, Perry. And I felt extremely embarrassed. I feel extremely like, wow, I'm an immoral person. So I felt really bad. And so like, okay, there's a line I shouldn't cross. In my defense, I'm like, I never signed up for it, and I never intentionally tried. I just got into it, and I like, is it up to me to report it, or should I think, everyone gets that, like, this company is a super transparent company. Obviously, I should know better. But that's an example of like, I'm not a stickler to things. I just like, here's the system. I like to figure out the rules. I like to understand how the game is played, and I want to win the game. The second example also I got into trouble was, there was one time where I needed to go to a concert or whatnot, and I figured out a coupon. And me being the software engineer, I quote unquote abused the system to get myself a coupon. And I felt really bad. Like, as soon as I did it, I'm like, okay, this is not cool. This is not right. It was like a freaking $8 coupon. Okay, I apply a $10 thing. I'm like, because I think what happens is, when I was a Lyft, you're supposed to get like $20 or $10 for the month. And I'm like, I didn't use the last month, so this month I could use it. And now that it's expired, so I kind of want to like apply it. So like make up for the credit that belonged to me last month. Anyway, so immediately I reported to the regional manager, and then the regional manager forwarded that email to my manager. And then I had this second HR call. And then they're like, oh, this is the same Perry that had access to all the employee, offer letters. So that was a second thing. Anyway, the reason I brought up these two incidents was that the manager, who is a huge, mentor figure in my life, and literally when we had the second call, he sat down. The first call was with the HR manager directly because, it's not like I try to add to the list. The second call, it was just me and him. And the first thing he said, every time when I had these problems about, people overstep the boundaries of a company in terms of the rules and so on, they're usually the highest performers. He has such a way of explaining things. He's like, usually they're the smartest people in the company, and they have a tendency to be like, oh, here's a system. Let me see how I can unpack it and tackle it and so on and so forth, and see what I can gain out of it. And then his advice to me is, when there's a room and that room is locked, it is human tendency to want to open it and pick what's inside. But sometimes you have to refrain yourself from doing so. And so that's when I know I never lost my cleverness, but I know not overstep the boundaries. So that's when I know I don't want to lose my cleverness ever. That's useful. Startup is just being clever, hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. But I also know that there are certain things that I cannot cross. So I'm saying all of this because I can honestly say to myself that I live a high integrity life. All the syndications and real estates I have done, we never cheat the investors. We never misrepresent things. But I also know at the same time that the world is not necessarily only fantasy. So I also know for a fact that the world is not pure, but you gotta have a pure heart. So I learned I can be clever and moral. There are certain things that, in Chinese is called 占小便宜. So you win a little bit, and those are the things that are sometimes not worth it. There are fundamental things that one should not cross, such as embezzlement, lying, and so on. But where the line is, I usually think it's more about the spirit of the law. Like if I'm dealing with Chase Bank, whether it's 12 months or 9 months or Wells Fargo Bank, I could care less, right? In fact, we also design certain things in the company such that we want our customers to take advantage of it. They're like, I think I only want to raise $5 million, but they end up raising $20 million and they pay a fixed price for the next 12 months. I'm like, go do it. It's fine. Take advantage of us. And so now I'm in my mid to late 30s. I think that I live by this kind of doctrine that the world is corrupted. The deepest evils of human intentions, and you still maintain a pure heart that you can still do good. You know what's like to be evil, and you use your cleverness to add positivity to society. And so I list all the things I was being clever, and then I gave a couple examples where that crossed the line in the company. And then now I have my own company. How do I take this experience and form a culture that rewards being clever, like break things, even circumvent some rules? But there are certain things that one cannot cross, okay? And I think I do give the impression to folks that I have high integrity, I have intellectual honesty, that I don't cheat on the biggest things. But am I clever? Yeah, I think being clever is very useful to solving problems. So you can be clever, and you can also be highly moral and be a good person. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye.